Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy real-life family drama stories filled with shocking betrayals, emotional twists, and satisfying endings, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, let's get into today's story. My sister looked me straight in the eye and told me my daughter was no longer welcome at her wedding. At first, I thought she was joking. She wasn't. My 10-year-old daughter had spent months talking about being the flower girl. She had the dress, the shoes, and a countdown calendar hanging on her bedroom wall. Then, just weeks before the wedding, everything changed. When I asked my sister why, her answer left me speechless. Suddenly, it wasn't about family anymore. It was about money. What hurt the most wasn't what she did to me. It was what she did to my daughter. I remember watching that little girl's face fall apart when she realized the wedding she'd been dreaming about was moving forward without her. That should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't, because my sister's decision set off a chain of events that nobody could have predicted. Not her. Not her fiancé. Not even me. And by the time the wedding day finally arrived, the consequences of that choice would change everything. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is what happened. 3 months before my sister Amanda's wedding, life felt normal. I was 38 years old, living in a suburb outside Chicago with my husband David and our daughter Lily. Lily was 10 years old and absolutely adored her Aunt Amanda. If Amanda called, Lily answered before the second ring. If Amanda visited, Lily followed her around the house like a shadow. When Amanda got engaged, Lily was almost as excited as the bride herself. The day Amanda asked her to be the flower girl was one of the happiest moments I'd ever seen. Lily had screamed so loudly that our dog ran out of the room. Then she burst into tears and hugged Amanda for nearly a full minute. Everyone laughed. Amanda laughed too. Back then, she seemed genuinely happy to have Lily involved. For months, wedding talk became the center of every family gathering. Dress fittings, cake tastings, decoration ideas, venue tours. Lily wanted to hear every detail. Amanda encouraged it. She even took Lily shopping for flower girl accessories one weekend and posted photos all over social media with captions about her favorite niece. Looking back now, that's what makes everything harder to understand. Nothing seemed wrong, at least not at first. The first sign appeared during a Sunday family dinner at our parents' house. Amanda was sitting beside her fiancé, Brian, scrolling through wedding expenses on her phone. Every few minutes, she sighed dramatically. "Everything costs more than we expected," she complained. Brian nodded. "Way more." My father shrugged. "Most weddings do." Amanda wasn't satisfied with that answer. She spent the next 20 minutes talking about money. The venue cost too much. The flowers cost too much. The photographer cost too much. The catering bill had increased again. Eventually, she looked around the table. "I swear, people don't realize how expensive weddings are." Nobody said much. Then my mother asked a question that changed the atmosphere completely. "Are you two having trouble paying for everything?" Amanda exchanged a glance with Brian. It lasted only a second, but I noticed it. And for the first time, I felt something wasn't right. I had no idea that conversation would be the beginning of a problem that would eventually break our family apart. The room grew quiet after my mother's question. Amanda forced a smile and waved her hand. "We'll figure it out," she said. But the confidence in her voice sounded rehearsed. On the drive home that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Amanda had always cared about appearances. Even as kids, she wanted everything bigger, newer, and more impressive than everyone else's. If another girl had a nice birthday party, Amanda wanted a better one. If someone bought a new car, Amanda suddenly needed one too. Most of the time it was harmless. But weddings have a way of turning small personality traits into major problems. Over the next few weeks, Amanda's stress became impossible to ignore. Family group chats filled with complaints about expenses. Phone calls became centered around budgets. Every conversation somehow returned to money. Then one afternoon, she called me unexpectedly. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." She hesitated. "Would you and David be willing to contribute a little more toward the wedding?" The question caught me off guard. Our parents were already helping. Brian's parents were helping. Several relatives had contributed gifts and deposits. I wasn't expecting Amanda to ask us for money too. How much? I asked carefully. She named a number that made me nearly drop my phone. It wasn't a small contribution. It was several $1,000s. Amanda, that's a lot. I know. We can't just pull that kind of money out of nowhere. Her voice immediately changed. I wasn't asking for charity. I know. I just thought family would want to help. The guilt trip irritated me. Still, I kept my voice calm. We have Lily's school expenses, our mortgage, and college savings. Amanda sighed heavily. Forget it. Before I could explain further, she ended the call. That conversation created distance between us. Not a dramatic fight, just tension. Messages became shorter. Phone calls became less frequent. Whenever wedding plans came up, Amanda seemed annoyed. Then something even stranger started happening. At family gatherings, she spent an unusual amount of time talking about another family connected to the wedding. The Reynolds family. Brian's business partner and his wife. They were wealthy. Very wealthy. Amanda mentioned them constantly. How generous they were. How successful they were. How supportive they had been. One evening, she practically spent an hour praising them. They've been incredible, she said. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without them. I remember exchanging a look with David. Something felt off. It wasn't normal. A week later, we found out why. My mother called me one morning. Did Amanda tell you about the donation? What donation? The Reynolds family gave them a huge amount toward the wedding. I stopped what I was doing. How huge? When Mom told me the number, I understood everything. Suddenly Amanda's behavior made sense. The constant praise. The endless gratitude. The obsession with keeping them happy. That amount of money wasn't just helping pay for the wedding. It was influencing decisions. At the time, I thought the situation was uncomfortable. Nothing more. I never imagined it would eventually involve my daughter. And if I had known what Amanda was planning behind the scenes, I would have confronted her immediately. Because while she was thanking wealthy donors in public, she was quietly preparing to break a little girl's heart. I just didn't know it yet. The following Saturday, Lily and I attended a wedding rehearsal meeting at Amanda's venue. It was the first time Lily had seen the ballroom fully decorated. The moment we walked inside, her eyes lit up. Mom, look at the lights. She spun around in excitement, pointing at every detail. The chandeliers, the flower arrangements, the dance floor. For a 10-year-old girl, it looked like a fairy tale. Amanda greeted us near the entrance. At first, everything seemed normal. She hugged Lily and asked about school. Lily happily told her about a science project she'd been working on. Amanda smiled, but something felt different. Distracted. Almost forced. Throughout the afternoon, I noticed Amanda constantly checking her phone. Every few minutes, another message arrived. And almost every time, she smiled at the screen. Eventually, I saw the name. Mrs. Reynolds. The wealthy family again. By the end of the rehearsal, Amanda barely spent any time with us. Instead, she seemed focused on making sure the Reynolds family felt important. I tried not to think too much about it. Until 3 days later. That's when everything exploded. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I was finishing dinner dishes when my phone buzzed. Amanda. At first, I assumed she was calling about wedding details. Instead, her voice sounded unusually serious. Do you have a minute? Sure. There was a pause. Then another. Immediately, my stomach tightened. Whenever someone delays bad news, you know something unpleasant is coming. Finally, she spoke. We've had to make some adjustments. What kind of adjustments? Wedding adjustments. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What does that mean? Another pause. Then she said the words I'll never forget. Lily won't be participating in the wedding anymore. For several seconds, I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. What? The flower girl role is changing. I laughed nervously. Not because it was funny. Because my brain refused to process what she had just said. Changing to what? Amanda cleared her throat. We've decided another child will take the role. The room suddenly felt smaller. What are you talking about? It's complicated. No, Amanda. Explain. Her voice became defensive. The Reynolds family requested that their granddaughter be included. I stared at the wall. Completely speechless. Requested? What kind of request was that? And more importantly, why would Amanda agree? You're removing Lily? It's not personal. The second she said those words, I felt anger rising. Not personal? My daughter had spent months preparing. Months. It's absolutely personal. We're trying to keep everyone happy. I almost laughed. Everyone? Clearly not everyone. Because nobody had bothered asking Lily. Nobody had considered how she would feel. Amanda kept talking, explaining, justifying, making excuses. But I barely heard any of it. One thought kept repeating in my head. She chose money. The wealthy donors wanted something. Amanda gave it to them. And my daughter was the price. When the call finally ended, I sat alone in silence. I wasn't thinking about Amanda anymore. I was thinking about Lily, the little girl upstairs who still believed she was walking down the aisle in 3 weeks. And somehow, I had to tell her the truth. I've faced difficult conversations before. I've delivered bad news. I've handled family emergencies. I've sat through painful moments that no parent ever wants to experience. But nothing prepared me for telling Lily what Amanda had done. For nearly an hour, I stayed downstairs trying to figure out the right words. There weren't any. How do you explain to a child that she was replaced because someone else had more money? How do you tell her that the aunt she loved had chosen strangers over family? Eventually, I walked upstairs. Lily was sitting on her bed with her flower girl dress spread across her lap. She was looking through photos from the shopping trip she and Amanda had taken months earlier. The sight nearly broke me. Mom, I forced a smile. Can we talk for a minute? The second she saw my face, her smile faded. Kids notice everything. I sat beside her, took a deep breath, and told her. At first she looked confused. Then she asked me to repeat it. So I did. And I'll never forget what happened next. She didn't cry immediately. She just stared at me, like she was waiting for the punchline, waiting for me to tell her it was some kind of misunderstanding. When that realization finally hit her, tears filled her eyes. Did I do something wrong? That question shattered me. No, sweetheart. Then why? I couldn't answer honestly. I couldn't tell a 10-year-old that adults sometimes value money more than loyalty. So I simply hugged her while she cried. That night, she placed the flower girl dress back into its box. Then she pushed it into the back of her closet. I never saw her touch it again. The next few days were ugly. Word spread through the family quickly. And people were furious. My parents called Amanda immediately. My father demanded an explanation. My mother cried. Several relatives openly criticized her. Amanda defended herself every single time. The wedding isn't about Lily. We had to make difficult decisions. People don't understand the pressure we're under. But nobody was buying it, especially after the truth started leaking out. Eventually, one of Brian's relatives confirmed what many of us already suspected. The Reynolds family hadn't simply requested the flower girl position. They had expected it. And after contributing a substantial amount of money, Amanda wasn't willing to say no. That revelation made things worse. Much worse. For the first time, even some members of Brian's family started questioning Amanda's judgment. Yet despite all the criticism, she refused to apologize. Not to me, not to Lily, not to anyone. Instead, she doubled down. She convinced herself she had made the right decision. And, because of that, our relationship practically disappeared overnight. We stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped seeing each other. Weeks passed. Then wedding week finally arrived. By that point, Lily wanted nothing to do with it. She didn't ask questions anymore. She didn't mention Amanda. She didn't talk about the wedding. The excitement that had filled our house for months was completely gone. I honestly considered skipping the event altogether. David agreed. My parents agreed. Several relatives encouraged me not to attend. But in the end, I made a different choice. I decided to go. Not for Amanda. Not for the wedding. But because I refused to let her actions destroy our relationships with the rest of the family. At the time, I thought attending would simply be uncomfortable. I had no idea I was walking straight into the biggest disaster Amanda had ever experienced. And when wedding day finally arrived, Everything started falling apart faster than anyone could have imagined. The morning of the wedding felt strangely tense. Even before we arrived at the venue, my phone was buzzing with messages from relatives. Most of them weren't talking about excitement. They were talking about problems. Small problems at first. The florist was running late. The seating chart had been changed again. A vendor was demanding a last-minute payment. Nothing unusual for a wedding. But the closer we got to the ceremony, the more chaotic the updates became. When David and I arrived, the atmosphere felt completely different from what Amanda had imagined for her perfect day. Guests were whispering. Staff members were rushing around. And Amanda looked stressed beyond belief. I barely recognized her. Her smile looked forced. Her makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion under her eyes. For a moment, I actually felt sorry for her. Then I remembered Lily crying in her bedroom. The sympathy disappeared. The ceremony itself started nearly 40 minutes late. Nobody officially explained why. But rumors spread quickly. Apparently, several payments connected to the wedding budget were still unresolved. The expensive upgrades Amanda had insisted on were creating problems. Meanwhile, the Reynolds family arrived like celebrities. People moved out of their way. Staff members greeted them personally. Amanda practically rushed across the room to welcome them. Watching it happen confirmed everything. The relationship wasn't built on friendship. It was built on money. During the ceremony, I noticed something else. The little girl who had replaced Lily looked miserable. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't excited. She seemed nervous and uncomfortable. Several times, she looked toward her grandparents, waiting for approval. The entire situation felt forced. And honestly, it made me feel even worse for Lily. After the ceremony ended, guests moved into the reception hall. That's when the real problems began. About an hour into dinner, raised voices started coming from one side of the room. At first, people tried to ignore it. Then the argument got louder. Heads started turning. Tables went silent. Even the music couldn't cover it. Near the front of the ballroom, Amanda and Mr. Reynolds appeared to be having a heated discussion. Neither looked happy. Then Brian joined the conversation. A few moments later, his parents joined too. Whatever was happening clearly wasn't minor. The tension spread across the room like wildfire. Guests began whispering. People stood up to get a better look. And suddenly Amanda looked close to tears. 10 minutes later, the truth started circulating. Apparently, there had been disagreements about money. Big disagreements. Promises. Expectations. Financial commitments. Things that should have been discussed long before the wedding day. Instead, they were exploding in front of hundreds of guests. The Reynolds family felt they hadn't received the recognition they deserved. Brian was furious. Amanda was panicking. And both families were blaming each other. The argument became impossible to hide. Then came the moment nobody expected. The Reynolds family gathered their belongings and walked out, right in the middle of the reception. The room fell silent. Every guest watched. Every camera followed them. And as the doors closed behind them, Amanda stood frozen in the center of the ballroom. The same people she had prioritized over her own niece had just abandoned her. But, unbelievably, the worst part was still coming. For several seconds after the Reynolds family left, nobody moved. The ballroom felt frozen. Guests exchanged confused looks. Servers stopped in place. Even the DJ seemed unsure whether he should continue playing music. Amanda stood near the dance floor staring at the closed doors, completely stunned. The people she had worked so hard to impress were gone. And they hadn't left quietly. They had left after a public argument that hundreds of people had witnessed. Brian looked furious. His parents looked embarrassed. Amanda looked like she was trying not to cry. At that point, most people assumed the situation couldn't get any worse. They were wrong. Less than 30 minutes later, several guests began leaving early. Then more followed. The energy in the room had completely changed. What was supposed to be a joyful celebration now felt awkward and uncomfortable. Nobody wanted to talk about the argument, yet everyone was talking about it. The whispers spread from table to table. Eventually, one of my cousins sat beside me. "You know what people are saying?" I shook my head. They're saying Amanda damaged relationships with her own family for people who didn't even stay until dessert. The comment wasn't cruel. It was honest. And judging by the conversations happening throughout the room, plenty of others felt the same way. For months, Amanda had focused on keeping wealthy donors happy. She had ignored warnings, ignored criticism, ignored the feelings of the people who truly cared about her. And now the consequences were sitting right in front of her. Later that evening, something happened that surprised me. Amanda approached our table. Not confidently, not proudly. She looked defeated. The kind of defeated that only comes after realizing you've made a terrible mistake. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then she looked directly at me. "Can we talk?" I followed her outside into a quiet hallway. For several seconds, she stared at the floor. Then the tears started. Real tears. Not wedding stress. Not frustration. Regret. "I messed up," she whispered. I didn't answer. There wasn't much left to say. She wiped her eyes. I kept telling myself I was doing what I had to do. Still, I remained silent. Then she said the words I never expected to hear. "I should never have done that to Lily." For the first time since all of this started, she wasn't making excuses. She wasn't blaming pressure. She wasn't blaming money. She wasn't blaming anyone else. She was accepting responsibility. "I hurt her," she said quietly. "Yes." "I hurt you too." "Yes." Amanda nodded. More tears followed. "I don't know how to fix it." The truth was simple. Some things can't be fixed immediately. Trust takes time. Relationships take effort. And apologies don't erase pain. But they can be the beginning. A few days later, Amanda asked if she could meet Lily. I let the decision be Lily's. To her credit, Amanda apologized sincerely. No excuses. No explanations. Just accountability. Their relationship didn't magically return to normal. Neither did ours. But it slowly began healing. Today, years later, Lily remembers the pain. But she also remembers the lesson. The people who truly matter aren't always the wealthiest people in the room. They're the people who stay when money isn't involved. And Amanda learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Because in the end, the family she pushed aside remained. The people she chose instead walked away. And that made all the difference. The end.